All right, Nuggets fans, welcome into Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends here at Mile High Sports, and now a new sponsor for the show, FanDuel. FanDuel is sponsoring Pickaxe and Roll on the Believe Podcast Network. Thanks to FanDuel for hopping on. This is a kind of an intro episode, August 1st. It's the first time that all of the podcasts across the Believe network or within this string of episodes or the string of podcasts are going to be sponsored by FanDuel. So it's a big thing for the network. Very excited for the crew and very excited to have what I think should be a long-standing fun partnership. So looking forward to sharing some good content with you folks. I'll be kind of talking and offering some different points of emphasis through FanDuel lens over the course of these episodes going forward, but very excited to be a part of it. On today's episode, we are going to be. I had a show recently on Lockdown where I talked about Jamal Murray being underrated. I'm going to kind of reframe that to Jamal Murray being essential. We're going to talk about Nikola Jokic a lot on this show, especially through the lens of his all-time ranking in the NBA. I think that this is always such a polarizing discussion. It's a conversation that everybody likes to have. Like, where do you have certain guys in your top 100? Where do you have certain guys in your various lists? Talked about this with Swipa, I think a week ago, 2 weeks ago or so, and Nikola Jokic on the Bleacher Report all-time ranking, their top 100. He ranks 17th in the NBA. I think that's a little low. I think that I'd probably have him 15th, but it's within the same range. It's in the same realm of where he is as a player, where he is within his career, first 10 years. To be that high is tremendous. There's only a few players in NBA history that can say through their first 10 seasons, they cracked the top 15 in an all-time ranking. And for Jokic, it was 17. But for my own personal, because, I watch him, I'm very intelligent. He ranks 15th for me behind your host of normal characters, your Michael Jordans, your LeBrons, your Magic Johnsons, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. There's a lot of names that deserve the credit and will get the credit until Jokic continues to do the things for the rest of his career. But I think it's just such a fascinating conversation when you talk about the best player in Nuggets franchise history. There's no question about it. What he provides, what he does for the Nuggets on a consistent basis. They'll never have a player like this again. You always want to be represented by the best, and it's always very cool. Like, fans get very possessive with the idea that Jokic could be one of the greatest players the basketball sport has ever seen. And that's a very cool thing. So we're going to talk through it at least a little bit. What his all-time ranking is, where could he go, what does he need to do in order to get there, things like that. He's had 3 MVPs already. He's won 1 championship. He's had a run of 5 straight seasons that are all MVP caliber. He's finished either first or second in the MVP race in each of the last 5 seasons. I don't really expect that to change. It would be shocking if Jokic was outside of the top 2 of the MVP race going forward. It almost more surprising than if he won another one. I think that for any other player in the NBA, that would be crazy. But with where the Nuggets are, with how their roster is built, with the pressure and the expectation of statistics and of winning and of impact that Jokic has on a consistent basis, it's not really a surprise to see him. I think the number was second on the MVP mentions or on the MVP voting odds on FanDuel, plus 250 to win MVP behind Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at plus 200. If he were to win another one, that's a very select few players in NBA history that have ever won 4. I believe the list is like Wilt Chamberlain. Did Wilt Chamberlain win 4? I think he won 4. I think Kareem Abdul-Jabbar won 4. I think Michael Jordan won 4. I think LeBron James won 4. Is there somebody else that I'm missing? I don't think so. I think once you crack that list, it's just a that's a who's who of the top, and in terms of the players that impacted the most in the entire NBA history. You ask a variety of different people, and some will have Kareem a little bit lower, some will have Wilt Chamberlain, especially a little bit lower. There's a lot of people that think that his numbers are fake. Uh, I don't know. Played against like just I don't know. That seems far fetched to me. But with Jokic, we're watching it in real time. We're watching him redefine record books in real time. We are watching him change the center position and kind of usher in a new era of not just pace and space, but skilled, like, because pace and space was about Steph Curry and the Warriors and them getting smaller, Draymond Green being able to play the backup or the small ball five. And in their heyday, they would have matched up with a Jokic team and given Jokic some problems. That's not necessarily the case anymore. Just 3 years kind of after uh, the Warriors won the championship, now we are in the era of skilled size, where across the board, the players that are dominating their positions the most are the biggest players at their position, the most physical, the most athletic, the most versatile, and the most skilled players at their position. That's always kind of been the thing. But more than anything, you see Shea at the point guard position. That's a tough cover for anybody under 6'4". For Jokic and for the center position, he's redefining it to the point where you can run stuff through him and run passing actions through him. And that was always the way that things went for him back in even 2016, 2017, 2018. He really took off when he started to learn how to score and how that was so much more valuable for what the Nuggets needed and for what the NBA needed was for him to just have so much pressure forced upon the opposition that they needed to adjust to him. And so going through that metamorphosis over the course of the first 10 years of his career, he has developed into a player that I think can be no worse than the 20th best player of all time. Like you get into that tier, like I think of Moses Malone kind of on that edge where he won a championship, he won 3 MVPs, he was dominant at the position, elite rebounder, elite interior scorer, guy like that. Jokic is this era's, at the very minimum, Moses Malone. And Moses is a guy in kind of in that realm where if you don't have him in your top 20, you're probably thinking about it wrong. So he is somebody that I think kind of gets lost to the fact that it was the 70s and but mostly the 80s, the early 80s, right before Jordan fully was indoctrinated into NBA mega culture. Um, but there's also these other centers that throughout history have been super dominant. I've seen a lot of people, especially it gets into July and now we're into August, that you start to have these conversations on social media. They'll pop up and everybody's looking for engagement. One of the ones that's most engaging is when somebody posts like, these are my top 5 players at every position all time. And you see a lot of faces. You don't see Jokic's face all the time. And the reason for that is because you've got Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, you've got Shaq, you've got Wilt, you've got Bill Russell, you've got Hakeem Olajuwon, you've got like just a massive conglomerate of centers that if you don't have Jokic on your Mount Rushmore of all-time centers, it's hard to really blame people because the center position has always been the most stacked in NBA history. So Jokic is constantly trying to fight an uphill battle in order to crack that list. All of those guys that I mentioned, including somebody like a Moses Malone. If you want to open it up to power forwards, then Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, Dirk Nowitzki. I think he's past KG and Dirk, but there are some people that don't. If you want to open it up to like the best big man conversation of all time, the only way for Jokic to really continue to rise is to win rings. That's really the only thing that's going to define it. And that's not a surprise. Nobody should it's not going to like change anybody's perspective too much if he only wins one, because everybody's seeing this in real time. I heard Zach Lowe and Bill Simmons talking about Jokic right at the end of a Zach Lowe show. And they were talking about Jokic kind of being the tester for, if you only ever win one championship, how high could your ranking all time possibly go? And like, Bill Simmons wasn't really focused that much about the rings. He was focused more on the level of play, which I think is fair, especially in the modern NBA. And he brought this up where it's been a league of parity. It's been really hard for any player individually to kind of define this era from a winning standpoint, because you just need so much around you. You need so much to go right. So it's not a surprise that if Jokic doesn't ever win another championship, then yeah, he might be held out of the top 10. But for Bill Simmons, he would kind of put him still into the Magic or Bird tier if he continues to play like this for another 4 or 5 years. And I don't blame him, because Magic and Bird, that's kind of the fifth or sixth best player in the NBA, somewhere around there, maybe seventh, depending on who you have with Shaquille O'Neal, Tim Duncan, guys like that. That's a crazy place to be. Like, Tim Duncan won 5 rings. Magic Johnson won 5 rings and 3 MVPs, I believe. Larry Bird won 3 MVPs, 3 rings, just dominant player. Injuries cut short his career. But like, when you start getting into those comparisons to players that basically, like, for Magic and Bird, they brought back basketball. For Tim Duncan, he's the ultimate, and Jokic has been comparing himself to Tim Duncan, of course, like the ultimate guy who stayed with one team and was dominant and won and did whatever his team needed to do. Didn't need a number of points, didn't need a number of assists or rebounds or whatever. He just wanted to win and did whatever the team asked him to do. Could have averaged more points and assists if he wanted. But I think that it really is simple, that for the vast majority of people, if Jokic finishes and the Nuggets finish with him with one championship, it will be a disappointment because of the level of player that he is, the kind of conversations that he's officially broaching. 5 straight MVP caliber seasons is crazy. And it's hard to think that he's going to be done. So can he win like another MVP? For example, would that change his ranking that much if he won 4 MVPs? Maybe. Like it might help him get up a spot or two. But really what's going to change this conversation is whether he can go to and win a championship. The Nuggets are plus 850 on FanDuel to win the finals, behind OKC, behind Cleveland, and they're tied with the New York Knicks, basically for third in the NBA. That shouldn't really surprise anybody given the weakness of the Eastern Conference, and like Cleveland and New York, if they want to, they'll basically waltz to the Eastern Conference Finals and will have to face each other. That's the expectation that everybody has. If Jokic and the Nuggets can get through OKC, Minnesota, who's been to the conference finals a couple times in a row, can get through Houston, who has Kevin Durant. Talked about these teams a little bit before. The Clippers, who they just got through. The Clippers got better, I think, especially against a team like Denver, adding Brook Lopez, John Collins, Bradley Beal to replace Norman Powell's production. Like, they should be better against a team like Denver. It's going to be tough. Like, it's going to be a bloodbath. That's going to be a very difficult conversation. If Denver fails, it's not going to be like, it'll be disappointing, but it'll be that surprising? No, because of how tough and talented the Western Conference is. So these are the conversations that we're going to be having over the course of certainly the next 2 years of Jokic's career, as Denver is in a really strong place to compete. But beyond that, if he continues to re-up with Denver and it's just they're good, not great, you only ever win one championship, it's going to be really tough for Jokic to crack the top 10 all time. I personally think that he will, because I personally think that Denver, over the course of these next 2-3 seasons, is going to win at least another championship. I think that they're well positioned. I think that Jokic is ready. I think that the rest of the team, as long as they can stay healthy, is in a good place where they could do it. We'll see what ultimately happens with it, but I do think that the Nuggets are well positioned to bolster what Jokic already does really well. They've added to their roster. It does feel like they're in a really good place, and I'm very excited to see what they continue to do from here. When we come back, we are going to discuss awards versus rest and the 65 game rule and how Denver might approach that this particular season, plus why Jamal Murray is essential for this version of the Nuggets. We'll be right back here on Pickaxe and Roll. All right, we are back. Pickaxe and Roll. Ryan Blackburn here. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Would really, really appreciate it. Folks, let's talk about the awards and the real conversation I wanted to have, because Jokic is the one who, of course, we're talking about with this particular conversation, where he's had so much burden to carry over the course of these past couple of seasons. I saw a post from Andy Bailey, friend of the program over at Bleacher Report, who posted that, like, he had a long, really impressive piece on Jokic on social, noted that Denver, or that Jokic, over the course of the last 5 seasons, ranked in the top 2 in points, rebounds, assists, steals. I don't know if there was another in that conversation, but to be in the top 2 in, like, think about how many scorers there are in the NBA. Think about how many elite defensive guards there are in the NBA. Think about the playmakers, the rebounders, the bigs. Like, for Jokic to be at the top of all of those lists, it is, one, a testament to his greatness, but two, a testament to his durability and his burden, his usage that he usually carries throughout these years. If I go over to Basketball Reference and just do a quick cursory look at the minutes that he has played in his entire NBA career, it's a bloodbath. You go from his 3rd season on, the last 8 seasons of his career, he's played 2,400 minutes, 2,500 minutes, 2,300 minutes, 2,500 minutes, 2,476, 2,323, 2,737 a couple of years ago, and then 2,571 minutes this past year. He did that doing 70 games. Like, the minutes per game for him was 36.7 minutes per game for a center. That's crazy. No center really does that in the modern NBA anymore, because it's just, the reason why, it's not because these guys are wusses. It's because it's so hard. It is so physically difficult and draining, and you're running back and forth on the court. The conditioning you have to have at the NBA level now is ridiculous. You have to be able to go out and guard the 3-point line on a consistent basis. So sometimes when I'm a little bit annoyed at Jokic for not closing out or not getting out to the corner on a consistent basis, sometimes you got to reframe it and understand he's in it for the long haul, man. He has to give up some of those shots on a consistent basis because he's playing so many minutes. The other thing is that he has played 73, 80, 73 in a NBA shortened season that was only 73 games long, 72 in a 72 game season, 74 out of 82, 69 out of 82, 79 out of 82, 70 out of 82. He has played no fewer than 69 games, nice, in his NBA career. That goes back, like, I was just talking about the 3 ones where he was playing the most. In his first and second season, he played 80 and then 73 games. Like, dude he's been a machine. He's been amazing from a durability standpoint. But the other side of that coin is that he's tired, and he gets tired. Like, don't let him tell you differently. Don't let these guys, everybody lauds his conditioning, and I appreciate that. I do. Like, he is an extremely well-conditioned athlete. When he's tired, he shows it less than other guys a lot of the time because he has that inat, if you are, shout out to Serbia. But in order to be a part of the awards conversation every year now, the NBA has instituted the 65 game rule, which means that like there are some stipulations there due to injury. There's if you leave a game, if you exit early, sometimes you might get that called against you. Sometimes if it's an injury, you might get that reprieved. But like for the most part, you have to play at least 65 games, play at least 20 minutes per game in order to qualify for awards at the end of the season. Now, Jokic has never had that concern before, nor have Nuggets fans ever really had that concern when it comes to Jokic because he always plays. He's extremely durable. He wants to be out there. Sometimes a little bit too much. Uh, would it be the worst thing in the world, though, if Jokic only played 63 games this year? If he only played 60 games this year? One of the reasons why you can even have that conversation is because the Nuggets have taken care of the rest of their roster. Yeah, they would struggle without Jokic. There's no doubt about it. But adding a clear backup in Jonas Valanciunas, somebody who could soak up some of those minutes, in those games, he could average about 28 minutes per game. And then the Nuggets would have to, of course, figure out the backup center position beyond that. But could they survive without Jokic? Sure. Absolutely. I don't see why they couldn't. Would Jokic be able to get some rest? Would he be able to nurse an injury that he wasn't able to nurse before? Absolutely. Is that justifiable? Is that something that the Nuggets should consider doing a little bit more? Well, in the 22-23 season, Jokic still averaged 33.7 minutes per game, but he played 69 games. In that year, the year the Nuggets won the championship, they had locked up the first seed, basically. They did not necessarily have to play all the way through the end line to try to compete for a certain total. If they get off to a good start, if they are pacing pretty well, if they don't go through major slumps or anything like that, and if they're pacing for about 55, 58 wins, I don't see why they couldn't do that again. Like, they don't need the 1 seed in order to win. It would be great. Would it be awesome? Sure. But if OKC is going to have 65 wins or 68 wins like they did last year, then Denver's not catching them. So what they need to be doing is positioning themselves where they could get the 2nd seed. If they have to, get the 3rd seed and then chill. And so does that go against maybe like playing all the way through? Like, do you have to play Jokic 74 games? No. But he played 70 this past year. Fortunately, he played closer to 37 minutes a night, and that's one of the reasons why the minutes were still so high. But I ask these questions because I think it's valuable to talk about, okay, he played 2,323 minutes in the championship season during the regular season, played 69 games. It was the fewest over these last 5 years. And lo and behold, the Nuggets went very far. The last time before that he had a number that was relatively close was 2,336 minutes that he played during the 2019-20 season. You know, when Denver went to the bubble and went to the Western Conference Finals, that was the only other time that the Nuggets have gone to the Western Conference Finals or further. It's not because Jokic played fewer minutes, but I wonder if he had a little bit more to give at the end of those seasons because he didn't have to stress, he didn't have to struggle all the way until the very end. And to me, that does make a lot of sense. So we'll see what ultimately comes of it. We'll see whether that's actually a thing. But it brings me to the final topic, which is Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray is essential to the Denver Nuggets. He doesn't get talked about like he's essential. He is. I did a show last night. I'm recording this on Thursday night. I did a show on Wednesday night for Locked On that was basically Jamal Murray is underrated. He's become underrated, and it's time for Nuggets fans to let off the gas a little bit, to ease off the pressure on Murray just a little bit. And the reason why I say it, Look, I understand everybody has crazy expectations. Not crazy. It's not crazy. Like, it's not. Nuggets fans have expectations. They have championship expectations. They should have championship expectations every single season that Nikola Jokic is the best player in the world, or kind of in that conversation. The team doesn't have a future. They are invested fully after trading their 2032 first round pick. They've given up picks in 2027, 2029, 2032. Like, they are fully invested. They didn't even have a second round pick to trade. Actually, they do have one in 2032. But they really don't have that much draft capital anymore. They are paying Murray over $50 million a year over the course of these next 4 years. Aaron Gordon's extension kicks in this season. He opted into his player option, and then he gets 31, 35, 38, or 39 million, somewhere around there over the course of the next 3 years. Cam Johnson is on a 2-year deal. The Nuggets will probably look to extend him relatively soon. Christian Brown is up for extension. Will probably get extended relatively soon. But the more the Nuggets invest in this current group, the more pressure there is to win now. The more pressure there is to become the best that you can, not just because Jokic's all-time ranking is at stake, but because the Nuggets as a franchise are never really going to have this opportunity again. Not with the best player in their franchise history at the peak of his powers. So you have to be fully locked in. And Nuggets fans, rightly or wrongly, are very critical of Jamal Murray for assumed belief that he is not fully locked in all the time. And look, I understand why. I understand the perspective from fans. They want to see him hit the ground running. They want to see him take advantage of his potential. One thing that I think kind of gets lost in this, Jamal Murray was never really considered a high potential guard. It was one of the reasons why he fell in the draft. I thought that he was the third or fourth best guard, or third or fourth best player in that 2016 draft. He went 7th because people didn't necessarily believe in that upside. They thought that he would be closer to CJ McCollum. And frankly, that's who he's been in a lot of these. Like, he is CJ McCollum during the regular season, and then he's Damian Lillard in the playoffs. That has been his MO over the course of his entire career. Over the course of the last 2 seasons, he's had, I think, lesser playoff campaigns. The first one can mostly be attributed to injury. Some fans will argue it was self-imposed in a lot of ways, but Jamal Murray didn't hurt himself. He got hurt. It was unfortunate, and his play suffered as a result. This past year, he wasn't hurt so much as, like, he faced a really tough group of teams. Like the LA Clippers with Chris Dunn, who my co-host over at Locked On, Matt Moore, thinks that he should have gotten votes for Defensive Player of the Year. He couldn't because of the minutes restriction, by the way. But also had to go up against Ivica Zubac, who, like, I thought was an incredible defensive center. And there's a lot of great defensive players on that Clippers roster. They were very tough to go against. OKC, even more tough. And yet, you look at some of the players that that OKC faced. In the first round, Ja Morant looked like a worse player than Jamal Murray. Anthony Edwards in the Western Conference Finals looked like a worse player than Jamal Murray. Tyrese Haliburton in the NBA Finals before an unfortunately tragic Achilles tear looked like a worse player in those finals than Jamal Murray. He was dealing with some injuries, of course, but like that's true. Like, Murray was actually better than a lot of those guys when it came to playoff numbers. Like Haliburton, for example, in those first 6 games averaged 15 points, 7 assists, 5 rebounds, shot low percentages from the field, low percentages from 3. Anthony Edwards, if I go to his particular stats, in the Western Conference Finals, clearly seen as a much better player than Jamal Murray. And like, he has earned that right. In that series, he averaged 23 points per game, 47% from the field, 28% from three, 7.4 rebounds, 4.6 assists, 3.2 turnovers. He was at least minus 20 in 3 of the 5 games. Was a plus 36 in one of them in the game that OKC decided, we're going to give you that in a gentleman's sweep. The long and short of it is that the more I think about the playoffs, the more I think Murray was in a pretty tough position in that OKC series. The Nuggets did not have a lot of players that could take pressure off of him. Christian Brown wasn't ready for that quite yet. Michael Porter was hurt. Aaron Gordon got hurt. Russell Westbrook was hurt, also struggled. Julian Strawther wasn't ready. Peyton Watson, Julian Strawther had 1 game out of 7. Peyton Watson was okay. And Nikola Jokic was both good and frustrating in that OKC series. Could have been better in the middle of it. I'll say that. Murray wasn't perfect, nor do I expect him to be perfect, nor should fans expect him to be perfect. It does feel like when there's as much pressure as there is in these situations, that is the expectation, is you have to be perfect. I don't expect that. What I do expect is for him to be better, is for him to continue to improve. He cannot flatline. You always have to keep adding to your game. And he is in a place in his career where, with Porter gone, he has to establish some level of leadership, some level of dominance, some level of offensive control. And then if Jared Dudley and some of the new newcomers, to the Nuggets coaching staff, if they have any say, he'll really amp it up on the defensive end. I don't know if that's going to be possible. I don't know if he's going to be able to fully do all of those things, but he's capable of at least some of it. And that's one of the reasons why Nuggets fans are frustrated. I get that. But I also think that for this upcoming season, you got to let him see if he could prove you wrong rather than just assume that it's going to happen the way that you think it will. I think that he's going to be pretty good. I think that this is, I'm not going to predict an all-star season. I've been burned too many times to predict that. The Western Conference is a bloodbath. I do not expect him to make it. However, I do expect him to be a pretty impactful player. And if he is in a position where he is doing his job, 22 points, 7 assists, leading the Nuggets and kind of accounting for some times where Jokic gets to take some time off and he's really picking up the pace, he's really setting the table for Cam Johnson, helping him be great, then I think that Denver will be okay. I think that they'll be more than okay. I think that they'll be really, really good. And the long and short of it is that Murray, for all of the regular season whatevers, if he's great in the playoffs, all of it honestly becomes forgiven if it leads to a championship. But he has to be great. He was merely good in these past playoffs. I thought he was solid. He can be better. He averages 16th most points per game in the playoffs. Average level efficiency, about what Anthony Edwards, Jason Tatum, Jimmy Butler, those guys did. He can be better, but you got to let him try first before you try to write him off. All right. That is going to do it, folks, for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends here now at FanDuel. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on the way out. I will talk to you guys next week.